What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here for this month's presenting sponsor, Night Owl Gallery. Night Owl Gallery is an intimate, artist-run exhibition space showcasing the original paintings and fine art prints of Beth Ann Wilson. Also, it features curated goods from local artists and craftsmen. You'll be sure to find one-of-a-kind gifts, handcrafted jewelry, home decor items, along with a few vintage treasures. Located in the rear of 248 South Conklin Street in Highlandtown, across from the Sally O's, Night Owl Gallery is a unique space that brings together Wilson's love of the arts, community, and culture. Additionally, Night Owl Gallery hosts an array of arts and crafts workshops throughout the year and participates in community events, many of which are free and open to the public. So in this ever-changing world, safety is their priority. So feel free to join them and hit them up online at www.nightowl.gallery. Tell them Rob Lee sent you. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is a photographer, filmmaker from Baltimore, Maryland. We have David Wavey Anderson. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, what's happening?
So you got Dave Wavey and you got the American Wave. I'm the American Wave for those who are uninitiated. Yeah. It's just me photoshopped over Dusty Rhodes' face. If you are a wrestling fan, you'll get that reference. If you're not, you should look it up. So thank you. And I'm glad we were able to make this situation work, because we've been trying to make it work for a few weeks now. Yeah,
it's been like boats passing in the night. I'm thankful for it that it's working out now. I think the timing just had to be right. You know, I just really wanted to sit on these questions so I could blow your mind away. You know what I'm saying?
And it's super hot too. So I think we're both just like, let's not go out there and melt our ethnicities away, and let's just, do the interview here.
I mean, only half of me would melt though. So, but
Wow. So let's get into it. Let's talk about your work a little bit. So I gave that background, photographer, filmmaker, but I like to let the guests describe what their work is, and kind of that gives a little bit more of an intimate view on it. So describe your work to the fine folks.
Most definitely. I would best describe my work as a reflection of where I am at any point in time. Basically, most of my photography is more or less like a reflection of the environment around me. So depending on where I am or what kind of mood I am in, or even down to like what kind of gear I have with me, it will tell a story, or at least try to fabricate a moment in time that like this happened right here. And more or less, I try to just capture the emotional side. I guess people will call it more dramatic, I guess, because I like using shadows and contrast more. And I tend to lean towards the film look just because it's a lot more weighty. It just has texture. But overall, I just try to capture like the human interaction, like those stories that you pass by all the time. You ever just look at something like, man, that'd be a cool photo. Or like, man, I wish I would be able to remember this down the line, or something, or even being like in certain events or something. So my work would definitely be a reflection of the human experience through my eyes, I guess. So
in going into it, like what was that moment or some experience that maybe informed your decision to move into digital photography as less of a hobby and more of a career?
So this is a funny story. So I originally was in school for teaching. I went to CCBC and I was studying secondary education with a focus in like special ed and whatnot. And I was about maybe 6 or 7 classes away from graduating. And I'm sitting in my educational psychology class, and the teacher's just like droning over Common Core. And I'm sitting there, behind these thick ass textbooks. And I realized that I hate children. And that's a joke. I don't hate children. They're just a massive liability. But
what are you gonna do?
But it's really weird because it's like I always found you know how you in high school and it's like, all right, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Yeah. And it's like I never could find the answer to that question because I didn't even know who I was. I know that sounds very like it's deep as shit, and it's like that poetic. And I'm already light skinned, so I didn't want to really lean into like, oh, this man like cries in the rain. But it's a serious question. Like, what is it that you're passionate about enough, sacrifice and work towards that 10,000 hours for the rest of your life? I was just kind of expected just to be productive and move to the next level after high school, but I didn't know what I really honestly wanted to do. So I kind of just not wasted my time, but, you know, kind of put my time into studying. Like, you know, it was just a knee-jerk reaction, like teaching. All right, let's go try to be a teacher. But I fell into photography because I just was unhappy with the course load that I was doing. I didn't think I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. So I ended up dropping out. And at the time I had a core group of friends that I looked up to very heavily. Mm-hmm. And one of them is Mike John. Mike John, if you don't know, is a photographer and a cinematographer from Baltimore as well. But when I met him, you know, I wasn't shooting. I didn't own a camera or anything. But I had, you know, I was just enraptured in his energy. He became a very good friend to me. Yeah. And, you know, I looked up to him and I wanted to like almost emulate him in a way, just because he kind of just has his like moth to a flame type of appeal. Yeah. So on my 21st birthday, man, my sister put up money and drove me to Best Buy, and I bought my first camera, which was a Nikon D, 3200. Yeah. And I've been shooting with that same camera ever since, and it's been a wondrous tale of life. Yeah, so that's how I fell into it.
I dig it. It's one of those things where you learn like where you're at. You're like, I don't know if I want to do this. And it's just like, what am I passionate about? What do I like? And, you know, it's one of those things you learn that passion and all of that stuff, you can't fake it. It's almost like when you hear like old wash basketball analysis and they'll say, oh, yeah, you can't teach height. You can't teach passion. It's the same thing to me. And when you find something that you're either passionate about or you're not passionate about, you're like, so what's the cost here? I got to keep learning this stuff and doing stuff that I don't really care about. That's not really driving me. And it's not really getting me up in the morning. So in that, let's use these two questions. Okay. I'll combine them. What keeps you up at night and what gets you going in the morning?
What keeps me up at night is, I guess, what keeps me up at night would be my fear of death, I suppose. And I'll layer that answer because I believe we're all going to die, obviously, but I believe the key to everlasting life isn't necessarily in the physical sense, mm-hmm. but it's in the legacy that you leave behind, albeit, your work or your family, so be it. So I'm constantly, trying to think of scenarios to help me get those dreams rolling further than where they are already. Yeah. I'd like a family one day. I'd like to set up a studio and have this legacy that extends beyond my lifetime, and what keeps me going in the morning is, knowing that, every day above ground is a blessing. And people usually like, how you feeling today? And it's always the same thing, every day above ground is a blessing. Yeah. Because you get 24 hours to be the person that you want to be, make the changes that you want, and, learn from the mistakes you did the other day and not do them again, or, try to do them again differently for a different outcome or something. But what gets me going in the morning is a mystery, because I don't know what the next 24 hours will hold. It might be something great. It might be something that I need to learn from. It might, I might get fired tomorrow. Who knows? But yeah, it's always a journey of life. And I think the beauty in it is that as long as you wake up and want to live in that time, then you can enjoy it.
Yeah, you get to go after that mystery. You get up in the morning. You don't know if a bird's going to shit on you while flying around, flying away or something. And you don't know if you're going to meet the person of your dreams, the girl of your dreams, the guy of your dreams, whatever. You don't know if you're going to have the most like delectable gastronomic like experience in your life until you get up and get out. And I think that's the thing. And I think it's really important. And I think it's really nice that you look at things in that kind of manner of like, kind of like life is to be lived. And it's like, it's a blessing. It's a blessing, literally.
For sure, man. You have to live it. And I think that's why my work isn't always consistent, because I feel like you can definitely spot certain characteristics that I always hold in the work, but really the work is based on the environment. If it's a sad environment or it's whatever, the work's going to be sad. If it's happy, it's happy. If it's bright, it's bright. That's life. You know what I'm saying? I think people you know, like when you go to Chipotle, you get the same thing every time. It doesn't disappoint you, and it doesn't really blow your mind away. But if you really just go in there and just hit the random button or something, it's just like you get whatever in the bowl. And, you know, you might like this combination better. You might not. You know what I'm saying? And just how you said, life is to be lived. Yeah, man.
And a big piece of it is accessibility or what have you, but doing things that are real. Because when you mentioned the Chipotle scenario, right? You talk to certain people. I'm more of an eclectic individual. I get the vibe that you are as well. And, I'll talk to people say, yeah, I'm going to get tacos. Because, we're recording this on a Tuesday. And I was like, man, they're out of meat, man. They're out of chicken. They're out of steak. And I was like, what am I going to get on there? And I was like, I guess I'll get cactus today. And I had a cactus taco. You know what I mean? And people look at me real side eyes. I didn't think when I was getting up in the morning I was going to have cactus with, a little cheese and, nice, delicious situation. It was different. It was unique. And I could say I've had that experience, and it felt real. Like, I'm a crapshoot kind of person. It's like, I'm not going to make a big thing and not enjoy myself because they don't have one little thing that I want. I didn't know I was going to have that day. And now I can say I've had cactus. And I can go with that knowledge to another experience in the future and say, you know what? Let me get chicken and cactus.
That's a switch up. I mean, honestly, bro, I gave up. I went vegetarian, man, at the start of the year. So it's been a transition to like retrain yourself how to eat. Because I fucked up some bologna, like, Oscar Mayer, BOLOGNA. Like it was bad. Some potato bread, some American cheese, and bologna. Like, that was lunch for 2 weeks. And now, you know what I'm saying? And the doctor was like, yeah, bro, something gotta go. He just kind of looked at me sideways. I'm like, all right, man. So
he's like, more jackfruit in your life, and a few less carbs, more jackfruit. It's like, hey, are you working for Big Jackfruit? What's going on here?
Like, you like your feet? And I'm like, yeah. All right, you should change your diet. I'm like,
shit. Like, well, I do like to run on occasion. Well, that's going to stop if you don't sort this shit out.
I'm going to be real. I tried running, but running is like...
Yeah, I don't...
It's weird, bro.
I'm too long and too clumsy to run. Like, I'm 6'4", and I have terrible knees. I've always had terrible knees. I'm like, I can give you a couple minutes. I'm not a cross-country guy. I give you a few minutes. That's what's real for me. My couple of minutes is what's real for me. I'm the 1 minute. I'm the running equivalent of a 1 minute man. Does that make sense?
Nah, I'm good, man.
I read that your work, and you touched on this too, your work aims to show and capture something real, those imperfections, those emotional layers in human life. Share the importance of authenticity in photography.
Authenticity will be timeless. It won't be you remember like last year or so when everybody was going into like Home Goods and Joann's and taking the photos in the flower aisle? Like fads will come and go, just like fashion. But the timeless images that you see that stand the test of time, from when they first invented the camera up until now, come with a certain level of authenticity that this image will never be able to be recreated. And although literally none of these images that you take will ever 100% be recreated by somebody else, it's the flavor that comes with it is unique in itself. So authenticity to me is the ability to literally be present in the moment and capture that moment, because that moment will never come again. I think I hope I answered the question.
That's legit.
I feel like I'm speaking poetry too much.
No, you're being light-skinned poetic. I like it.
Like, I'm looking in the mirror, squinting my eyes right now. Like,
that's funny. That's funny. The beige wave. So, who or what are your photographic and non-photographic influences? Speak on that a little bit. Like maybe they aren't the same as they were, but maybe look at it from that angle. Like, what were they maybe in the past, and what are they now? Maybe to show that maturation potentially.
I feel you. Marijuana, number one. Just to be honest with you, like, if this is about getting to the truth.
That's the truth right there.
Exactly. If I don't think I would be the person or artist that I am, in the artistic sense, or really just as a person, if I didn't experience marijuana. And I know that sounds very, maybe it doesn't sound too weird now because it's not as taboo as it was back in the day. But when I started smoking, man, I looked at the world totally different. And because of that viewpoint, I was able to almost be an objective visitor and not, be too pulled in any one way. I just kind of let the tide take me. So marijuana is definitely a big influence. As far as visually, photographer Sean Champion, her work has always inspired me and I always strive to be like her. My bro Mike John, obviously, he was a very big influence. Kirby Griffin, he's another cinematographer from Baltimore, Maryland. One of the up and coming OGs. Honestly, I think he's number one when it comes to, just capturing Black essence. Definitely, mid to late 90s Spike Lee, like around Mo Better Blues, Spike Lee, Quentin Tarantino, Alfred Hitchcock, and music, man, like Roy Ayers is definitely a big influence. A lot of jazz, man. Like for whatever reason, that kind of music just transcends when you start smoking weed. Like I
dig it.
But yeah, man. Like music has always been and probably will be one of the most important influences to my artistry as well, because it helps take the mood out of that tone you hear in your head. Nobody else can hear it, but if you all are vibing to the same track, of course you all nod your head at a different beat or a different pace, but it's all on the same rhythm. You know what I'm saying?
I used to look at marijuana in two different ways. I used to look at it as it's a means of being mindful, depending on like really how to what degree you're on vibing and what type of thinker you are and all of that. I also look at it as a portal or what have you. Maybe both of those kind of are layered together, the mindfulness and the portal aspect, but you're able to tap into something and you're able to see like different things or what have you. Because some people they get lazy and they don't want to do anything. But I think for a certain branch of creatives, and I think creatives in a more macro sense, they imbibe in a little something or what have you. You can have really long, deep ass conversations about just that creative process, or just you might see something within your creative process that, oh, I'm seeing that differently now. And it might be something that's worth journaling, right? Of like, all right, when I'm doing this shoot, this type of shoot or this type of layout, and I maybe had a little indica, a little hybrid or something in my system, and that was different than when I didn't, or when I had a sativa or even some hash or something along those lines. Like, how does that differ? And do I feel like I'm more creative? Because you touched on jazz, right? And how you'll go back and you'll listen to like music, and like I watched the Coltrane documentary and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you were on a few different things or what have you, or even like, but it's a thing where they're able to tap into something, and it's like the drugs had some influence and maybe amplified that talent that's naturally there. And it's not to say that they don't have the talent they needed as a crush, because obviously he didn't, and a lot of them don't. But you'll hear people with their criticism sometimes say when the drugs were there, the music was different, especially when it comes to that genre.
I totally agree. Here's a good example, man. I'm a big D'Angelo fanatic. I think D'Angelo's one of the best artists out here. His album Voodoo hit for me just in a way. Just sonically, I consider Voodoo sonically a perfect album. And it's up there with like Marvin Gaye and songs in the Key of Life or something. But when I got high and listened to Voodoo for the first time, it's like you ever watch that movie National Treasure? Yeah. When dude had the glasses and on the map it was like if you put the glasses a certain way it's a code, but then if you put the glasses a different way it's a different code. Yeah. Yo, when I got high and listened to Voodoo, it was, for whatever reason, there was just a point in my life where I just needed to hear it, and he was talking like to me, and I understood. It was really weird. And then I'll go back and listen to other albums high, and it's like, damn, they was really talking to me. And and not to be like in a selfish sense of it, but like it resonated with my soul that much more. Maybe because I was in an inebriated state that allowed myself to be open to it more. But it was a totally different vibe. And also, man, I don't know if you ever listen, but like if you listen to songs like Chopped and Screwed or something, or Slow Down, you listen to those high and it's like you understand it. It's hard to explain, but it's like
I used to get into a very interesting place in terms of discovery of music when I was out there, and that was a really big part of my life. Like we're talking better part of 10 years ago at this juncture, but I was just getting zooted, just Johnny Walker weed. I was the Johnny Walker Texas Ranger. It was wild, and I was listening to like just kind of things that would be considered kind of more experimental for my aesthetic, right? So listening to like Rat-a-Tat, listening to Management, like early Management, MGMT, and listening to it's just a few other bands that kind of fall outside of the realm that lean a little bit more to alternative, but there is musicianship there. And I would just be like dipped into it. It's like not even looking at the length of the songs. It's just like, damn, I've played this album like 5 times today. And Black Keys would be another one that would pop up. And it's like, I've just been looping this album and I'm not looking for what I would normally look for, during those times. I'm looking for, wow, so you got xylophones on this track? Why you got that on there? And you would inherit, at least I would think I would inherit something, because I was podcasting during that time too. So my approach to some of the stuff I was doing, I was broadening my creative like outlook on things of like, all right, let's do snippets. Let's do little skits. Let's do sketches. Let's do different things outside of just the normal conversation we would have and covering the news and things like that. Let's add some extra value there, and just something that's just, it might feel a little left, and maybe this is a high thought, but it was something that we wanted to do with me and my co-host. And a lot of it comes from like weed and kind of looking at different creators and what they were doing specifically in music.
I feel you. I'm gonna touch on that, but it's funny you mentioned that too. The first time I got really high, and I was with a friend, and I got uncontrollably high to a point where it was like I pretty much levitated from my body. And that's a long story. We can definitely like talk about that, another time or something. But like I pretty much had an out of body experience, and I witnessed my physical form. Long story short, once I got connected my spiritual self back to my physical form. There was a song playing in the background. It was Echoes by Pink Floyd. And it was like, it just caressed me and it kind of helped me guide myself back. So whenever I listen to that song, I get this very warm feeling, like, cause I was here before, and it has a very special moment. But also I think the idea of marijuana opening up these alternative things is that most of the artists out here got high. Like there was a whole, like people smoke, like they call it jazz cabbage. You feel me? Like the devil. And it was like, they wanted to outlaw because it was making the black artists even better. You know what I'm saying? And, it was just a whole political thing. But marijuana has always been a part of the creative process for a lot of the brilliant minds out here. And I kind of envy artists like Kendrick Lamar or whatever, who don't need marijuana to get into that trance state. But even they experimented with, with it at some point, to, either a negative end or, I've transcended the need for marijuana, but it definitely, for me, it definitely kind of puts me at ease as long as I'm not overloaded with a lot of people. But oftentimes it really it kind of connects me with people too much. And you start thinking about things that you shouldn't be thinking about. And it's like, is this person's vibe right? Like I'm high, or is it, I'm just high as shit. And then it's like, it amplifies your gut feeling. And wherever your gut feeling is centered at, it's gonna just kind of reverberate out.
Yeah, I think it enables you to, I think in many respects, connect with the truth and
I'd like to not need marijuana in the future, but I definitely enjoy it. I definitely enjoy it having a part of, I guess, who my identity is and for the creative process. But
I dig it. And I think it's a key thing to look at and see what it does for you and how it contributes to what that creative process is. And for me, I used to have it as a part of, if I'm going to do something that some people may consider irresponsible, it's how you view it is up to you. It's a personal thing, right? So that's the way I would look at it. And you know, I would make sure I did something that felt really productive while I was doing it. So it's like, all right, I'm not going to go out in public and be like super zooted. So I'm going to get super zooted. I'm going to be in the crib and I'm probably going to work on a podcast. I might come up with some questions and that'll put me in a different space to be more broad in my thinking, or even maybe just do some editing with it. And it would be, you know, it would be something that I was like, I can really put this into my process, instead of making it feel like, you know, why are you doing this? You're wasting something. So lastly, this is the last question I had before we get to shameless plugs. From a photographer's perspective, describe Baltimore through your lens.
Baltimore is the essence of building the plane while you fly it. From a photographer's perspective, it is untapped potential with, you know, only a decent percentage of that actually converting to actual, you know, I don't know what the opposite of potential is, but kinetic energy.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't want to say that in a negative way. I think Baltimore is a gold mine as far as artistry is created, and, you know, being a true artist. But I think it also has its limitations as far as the fruit that it can bear for you and how you can live in there. And that's just because of historically how Baltimore's been treated in the media, you know, politically with redlining and the business structures and, you know, the loss of large communities and, you know, Ronald Reagan and Nixon with crack. You know, that was a big one.
I mean, so it's almost like it's programmed to have, instead of the potential energy or the kinetic energy, it's almost like stagnant or this energy, if you will.
I don't know if it's stagnant. I think it's like the old black man that, you know, that's too proud to go see a therapist, even though, you know, he has some issues that he's working out.
Yeah.
You know, but he, you know, he still functions accordingly. But when he does go see the therapist, everything gets better. And I think Baltimore has been finally letting go of some of its pride and going to see that therapist. And it's working out good. And you can see the results on the back end.
I dig it. That's legit. That's absolutely legit. Because, you know, as you start seeing these things, you see opportunities, you know, being put out there, but it's still this notion of scarcity. And, you know, with all of the other things that are kind of baked into what makes up a city, right? That's one of the things I try to do, is make the conversation seem like Baltimore is unique in its ways, but also is similar to any other large city. And it has any of the things that it has, some of the unsavory things. It has some of the really culturally impactful, unique things that are here. And I think there's always just too much focus on it. And it's not always the fault of the people here. Some of these things have just been rigged, as you touched on earlier, you know, Reagan, redline, all of that different stuff to be this way. You know, having an infrastructure that's as old as it is, and, you know, things of that nature, and the way these things are kind of targeted, and people still thrive regardless, in spite of these things. And what I always look for is for those ones that, you know, get a little light on them, get a little sun on them, or what have you. What are you doing to improve these things? You know, that's what I always look for.
My improvement to the city is an improvement to myself. I hope to create an image for me and the people that I decide to surround myself with, or want to surround themselves with, you know, who I am. Yeah. And I'd like to make an image of Black positivity, Black, you know, creativity, and just general, I guess what I'm doing. That's a good question. Honestly, now I guess with my art and how I choose to try to make the city better. But honestly, it comes down to change real issues. You're going to need capital, and you're going to need a major network. So for me to do the small scale stuff of building my business and reputation and align who I align myself with, if they have the same, you know, ideas and goals, I think that's how I I do my part to change. But it's not just, I don't think a single person can do it. I think a single person could be a figurehead, but the thing with figureheads is that, they can change or try to be destroyed. But I think if a group of people, which I have seen and been a part of, making massive change or just opening doors or whatever, I don't want to say or whatever, opening doors, giving new opportunities to the younger and older generation. I think that is how Baltimore can change its image. And also it just comes down to what we allow to be portrayed in media, like what we allow as our image to be. Like most cats only know Baltimore from Crack and The Wire. And it's a lot more to that. It's a lot of very important jazz history, culturally visual history that's been here. Food history here is amazing.
Yeah. And so, it gets wiped away way too often. And I think this and conversations like I think, this podcast or podcasts like this and conversations and just people putting together the community really kind of puts forth an effort to disprove the narrative. That's what I think is value in. It's like, it's not saying, oh, we're going to, act like none of this exists. No, we're going to do our effort, I think, to disprove it and show that it's not 100% that. So in that, that's all the questions I have. So now it's that time to shamelessly plug. So social media, all of that good stuff. Where can they check you out? And thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, I'm very appreciative for you to have me on here. I hope we can have plenty more conversations in the future, man. I definitely just like talking, number one, and listening, but I especially love talking about my city and the things that go on around it.
Absolutely.
But you can find me on Instagram at Wavey, Wavey with 4 underscores. You can check out my website. It's www.wavey.me. I released my first short film back in December. It's on YouTube. It's called Liquor for Water. I'm working on dropping a live album soon with a local artist. Be on look for that. It should be dropping in August. And just, find me in the streets. If you see me, wave, I want to be loved too. Jeez, there's more than 3 photographers in the city. Get active. Really look for your young Black people out here shooting and doing it, because they're the ones that are going to carry the legacy and keep Baltimore alive. So you got to be selfless out here, and if you have something to give, then you got to give it. I think that's important.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for being on the podcast, and I'll do my sign off. So for Wavey, for David Wavey Anderson, I am Rob Lee, saying that there's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.